careful what you say, because it's getting up. Okay. There.
We woke you up.
I don't know. I had a charge over waiting on my nose. So I like to work the scrub.
They can see me. I think that's good.
You guys still see that with the webcam?
Or would you prefer more like?
No, we need the light.
Lights out.
It's dark. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started, so let me know.
We're ready? Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Shaka Parker, and on behalf of Rain, North Texas, and YesNet North Texas, I would like to welcome everyone to today's Diversity Dialogue. Our guest speaker is Elliott-Yeary. I would also like to welcome our Garland participants, as well as those of you who are streaming our broadcast live. For our Garland and McKinney participants, please be sure to sign the sign-in sheet before you leave and obtain your raffle ticket. At the end of the session, we will be raffling a number of autographed books by Sherry entitled Ties to Tattoos, Turning Generational Differences into a Competitive Advantage. Books will also be available for purchase for $15 at the close of the session during lunch. Elliott-Yeary is known as the Generation Guru because of her expertise in helping employees and employers bridge the generation gap to work more productively and achieve a competitive advantage in the marketplace. As a senior human resources professional with over 15 years of experience, Sherry has seen her share of on-the-job squabbles. She's learned from her experiences what works and what doesn't in an era where 4 distinctly different generations must all work together and get along. Sherry is the CEO of human resources consulting company, Optimus Workforce Strategies, which specializes in helping organizations overcome human resource challenges to unleash the performance potential of people, leaders, and organizations. Because she was seeing so many workplace problems that were directly attributable to generational gaps, she also found Gen Insight, a human resources consulting company dedicated to helping clients effectively recruit, retain, and motivate the best talent from each generation. She brings to both businesses a wealth of experience and has served as a trusted advisor and human resources consultant to companies ranging from small startups to large international corporations. Prior to founding Optimus and Gensight, Sherry served as the Vice President of HR and Risk for Snelling Staffing Services. She is a senior professional in human resources and holds an associate designation in risk management. Ladies and gentlemen, Elliott-Yeary.
Thank you so much. I like to move around a lot. Can you all hear me? Okay. And I know you guys have good risk management. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing at the edge of the stage. So I'm going to be moving around quite a bit. We're going to hand out a little tag. I have 2 wonderful assistants on each side of the room. Vanna White, please. I knew they'd get a kick out of that, only because they're so open to it. Now, I don't want you to write anything yet. I want you to share your Sharpie if we don't have enough. We're going to learn to share with one another. I'm not going to make you move your seats or anything. But once you have it, then we'll go over what we're going to do with it. We'll get on to the presentation. See, I got my very important name tag when I got here, so I didn't have to worry. I was very concerned when I pulled up and they asked me for my driver's license. And I said, I thought I was already past the security check. I'm now a U.S. citizen. I've been fingerprinted by the FBI 7 times just to become a U.S. citizen. So thankfully I had my driver's license and they let me in the door. Okay, so everybody has their name tag. Tyler, you need one too. Just because you hand them out doesn't mean you don't have to play. So we are all going to raise our hands if anybody in this room is left-handed. Oh, yay, lefties. Okay. You are now going to write your name with your right hand on that name tag. No cheating. People who are right-handed, I want you to think about the reverse, and I want you to write your name, just your first name, and not nickname, and just write it on your badge. Yep, even open the pen. I know that's a struggle with the opposite hand. Everybody got a Sharpie? Yep. So right-handed people, we're going to use our left. Left, we're going to use our right. Just first name. And then we're going to put them on so I can see them. Doesn't mean I'm going to be able to read them, but I want to be able to see them. Now, is that Rudy? Way to go, Rudy! Good job. See what happens when you sit in the front row? Thank you for doing that. Absolutely love that. No, I won't pick on you, I promise. Okay. Well, since I've been given permission. Usually I pick on my husband because I like to make fun of him all the time. So we will get to that. So what did everybody think about that exercise? How did that feel to you? Awkward. Someone else? Concentration. Did you have to concentrate to get the lid off and learn to use the other hand? It's what, legible? Yes? Right? Someone else? Think in reverse. How about the word change? It's a change for you. We sign our names every single day, and I am left-handed. I sign my name, and then we're done with it, just like each and every one of you. Now, if we are asked to change our mode of thinking, it takes concentration. It takes effort. You have to focus on it. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today as we look at the 4 distinct generations. It takes all of us giving attention to it, being aware of it. How do we communicate with the different generation? So you all heard my bio. By the way, I had somebody write that because it's like, wah, 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 wah. That's really not who I am. When I come in, I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sherry. I'm a Canadian, become American citizen. I love speaking to groups and educating them on the generations. That's really my whole bio. But if you heard earlier, what generation do you think I'm from? I know we don't have to do this much educating in 45 minutes. So we have millennials, we have Gen Xers, baby boomers, and then traditionalists. And I'm putting them in order of age, so if anybody offends me, it's okay. I'm not going to get upset about it. Okay, so you're both right. I act like a boomer, but I was born in the Gen X age. So we're going to talk a little more about that. So I'm kind of like on the fence in between. I'm trying to maximize the best of both worlds because I can relate to the baby boomer world better than the Gen Xer in some ways, but I still want to claim that age. So let's get started. We're going to talk about the 4-generation workplace, and I really do believe it is a collaborative approach versus collision. And when I was at Snelling, I fired my own daughter once, twice, 3 times. I had a staff of 11 people in my risk management, my HR team. We supported 55,000 employees, so everybody had to be on their game. Everybody had to be dedicated. And this child of mine was not dedicated. At 16, she was texting 3,800 messages a month. She was a straight A student. She was asleep at her desk. So my staff would call me and say, Sherry, what's going on with her? And I'm like, well, fire her. Would we accept that from anybody else? Back then, I really wasn't interested in coaching my own child through work and through my home life. You know, it's hard enough doing a 16-year-old at home. So we fired her. And after I left Snelling, I decided I was going to start listening to some of what my clients were saying, and a lot of them thought it was personality conflicts. They were disregarding policies. They just weren't communicating. So it was, let's terminate them, let's write them up. But what it really was, it's a generational collision. They don't understand each other. And I wasn't understanding my daughter wasn't being fed and motivated to keep trying different projects. How many of you have heard that? The younger generation? That's okay. Keep going. You got work to do. The younger generation likes to have new projects. So we're going to go more and more into that as we talk about millennials. This is one of the cartoons from my book. This is human resources. And remember, I'm from human resources, so I can make fun of myself. A sick feeling came over Hank as he remembered not hiring this executive of the year 6 months earlier because he had a nose ring and purple hair. But that talks a little bit about our biases. And that was one of the things I noticed a lot of when we have recruiters and we have HR people trying to hire. They're not necessarily trying to make the right fit for the company. You obviously have a different culture here. Someone has to have a certain fit in their background, in their skill sets, etc. So maybe purple hair or a nose ring or a tattoo wouldn't fly here. But at GameStop or other companies, that would. But when we walk into a room, how many of you have judged me when you first walked in? Looked at me, judged me, thought something. You don't have to share what you thought about me. I'm just asking. Judged me. And we all have that. So for anybody who didn't raise their hands, I want them all up now because we all have personal biases. When we walk into a grocery store, we deal with people all the time. We go, I saw a lady the other day who was in a wheelchair, and it wasn't a judgment, but it was I feel really bad for her. You know, so we automatically, those things happen to us. But when we are working with the 4 generations and we're trying to build a company and a culture that's inclusive, we need to make sure it's not our personal bias, but it's something that the company, it doesn't fit their culture or the clients we serve. Those are the 2 most things. So I'm trying to, as my husband who's from Texas says to me, he's trying to relearn me in those ways. So let's talk about why this book. It's become a business imperative when turnover is so high with companies. The average age millennial, and I see quite a few of you in the audience, will leave a job 10.2 times, 10.2 before they're 35 years old. Now that's on average, I don't know, for mathematicians in the room, 8 months, whatever it happens to be. But right now the cost of turnover is about 33% of someone's annual salary. That's just what we can calculate in the recruiting and the training. But what about the soft costs when you lose one of your team members? What happens? Anybody? Everybody else picks up the workload. Does morale go down whether they quit or they got fired? Isn't there a lot of water cooler gossip and, you know, Facebooking? And not saying you guys do that here, but isn't there a lot of that going on too? It's distracting. It's hard. And then you've got to take on their responsibility. So then there's sometimes overtime if you're hourly. So that costs 30% of someone's annual salary isn't a true result of what it really does cost, because there's the people component. We have so many traditionalists, and we're going to talk about who a traditionalist is, and so many baby boomers that when they get ready to retire and leave the workplace, what do we have left? We've got the Gen Xers who are what we call the sandwich generation, because there's only like 48 million of us. So we're stuck right in between these millennials coming in and the boomers heading out because they want now this life-work balance that I'm trying to learn and understand. But also, what about going out and consulting? How many of you are gaining tremendous knowledge in your organization today and skills that you'll be able to take into your future? I hope everybody does, because if not, then you need to probably look at your training program. It helps build those blocks for success for the future. But what traditionalists and boomers have is we have knowledge. We have fought the battles. We've gotten here, right, wrong, or indifferent. But we have knowledge about what we do. If someone asked me an HR question, I could rattle off a piece of law or something about that, because that's just what I do. That's my skill set. So we are going to have a labor shortage in the next 20 to 30 years if the economy is good and people are leaving to start their own businesses or to go on and make an impact in the world. There's a lot of talk about halftime. How many of you have heard the idea of having a halftime life? Yes. Sir, what do you know about halftime? Absolutely. And there's a man named Bob Buford who wrote a book called Halftime, and he has a training location in Dallas, and it's all about wherever you reach your halftime point, what's next for you? What are you going to do that's going to give you passion, excitement besides your work? You can take your work with you, but you've hit that threshold. So whether you're 40, 50, 60, 80, there's a halftime that's going to come up in your life. And that's when you're going to exit corporate America and go, I'm taking all my skills with me, I'm leaving, and I'm going to do something different. So that's why we're starting to see that. Look at our current reality. I don't know if you can all see these, but we've got budget cuts, and we've got turnover, we've got employment crisis, doing more with less, inflation, bank failures. I heard from, I didn't know this, being Canadian, I'm kind of embarrassed, the Senator of Canada yesterday at a luncheon at SMU, and he can only be appointed by the Prime Minister of Canada, and it's a 20-year term, 20 years. And they were asking some really great questions. Why has the U.S. dollar suffered more than the Canadian dollar? And he said one of the biggest reasons was foreclosures, homes. In Canada, you have to put 25% down on a home before the bank will even consider you for a mortgage. Is that not amazing? So when I moved here, I was here with PeopleSoft. I moved into the Nortel area. When Nortel did all those layoffs, my whole community went black. Everybody moved out of their house. They lost their homes. They lost their jobs. So it's really interesting to see for the U.S. what some of the changes have done with our current reality. Reorganization. How many of you have moved around in your job due to changes on reorganization? A few. Okay. That's happening more and more too. Hopefully it's for a good thing. We're going to play a video for you. Hopefully you can hear this, and we got it turned up for you. So that was a picture of right there. So there's going to be my next video. Depicts what diversity is about, inclusion, how we can support one another, the fact we do have 4 distinct generations in the workplace and we have to do something about it for a change. So I really want to just kind of give you a quick overview. And we're going to get into each of the generations specifically. We have millennials, and everybody calls them something different. But I choose millennials because I believe it is a positive statement instead of Gen Y. And I have 3 daughters in the age of 21 to 23. So I think at home I get some good experience with this age group. Then we have traditionalists, anywhere from 66 to 78. I call those the neighbors who live next door, the millionaires next door. You know, they don't spend any extra money if they don't need to. They know how to save. You don't need to buy it if you don't have the money. You know, don't throw out that burnt piece of toast. And I always laugh at my mom because she shares this stuff with me. Boomers, they are anywhere between 47 and 65 currently. They say there's on average 8,000 baby boomers retiring every day according to AARP. I laugh because my husband gets this magazine at home in his dental office, and when I first saw it, I said, "You get AARP and you're a member of the garden club at Callaway's?" I'm like, "You didn't disclose that before marriage." So he always throws out that. But I love that article because it talks about people still working, making a difference, giving back to the community. And then we have our Xers. They're anywhere from 35 to 46, which is our sandwich generation. So let's get into each of the generations one-on-one. I got my assistant over here. Hear the song for a second. Now, how many of you know this? You can stop the music, but let's keep the screen up. Okay. As a new American citizen, I know that song. But that song really does represent, if you had to look at a song that matched the traditionalist generation, it is giving to the church, to your company, to the country. So it is that respect for authority that they're going to have. A lot of traditionalists stay with an organization until they get the gold watch at retirement. How many of you have heard that from somebody in the traditionalist age? They are great CFOs. They are great managers from a financial perspective. But as I joke with some of the people I help go out and interview with, you need to make sure that you know the person you're going to interview with or that's going to manage you, because the first thing you do is you don't go in and say, "Where's my laptop? Where's my iPad? Where's my iPhone? What can I text?" Because that's not something this generation understands. They understand face-to-face communication. So it is totally different for them. Theirs is adherence to the rules. You show up at 8 a.m. sharp and not 8:05. I love that. I just love that. So they do believe in dedication and sacrifice, and they will stay with an organization a long time. So if you are looking for people for certain departments where you need that stability, look for traditionalists. They have great experience. They're going to show up, and they're going to have the ability to adhere to rules. Especially here, because I think you guys have some good security rules. So let's talk a little bit about baby boomers. I always say you can tell a baby boomer because they're either on their second divorce or second heart attack. Tell me I'm wrong. How many people in this age group have you known? These are the parents of our newest generation of millennials. That would be me. This generation is into, when I say personal gratification, it's how can I get that project for myself? Why do I want to work in a team environment? Because if I do it, I get all the credit and all the kudos, right? Whereas younger generations are willing to share their what? Accolades. What else? Their experiences. Their knowledge. Baby boomers think knowledge is power. That's kind of like our equal, right? If we know it, nobody else does, the company needs us, and we're going to be kept around longer. Unfortunately, baby boomers are the ones that used to end up with loss of their jobs and divorce, and we raised latchkey kids. Our kids were trying to come home alone. We gave them everything we could, wanted to make sure they were well taken care of. When we talk about strong networks, that really goes with social involvement. A lot of baby boomers belong to, if you heard my full bio, they'd tell you I'm on 10 different boards. I'm involved in every charity thing I can imagine because I have an interest for giving back. But it's also my way of socializing. So for baby boomers, they may get their training through an area like this where they can talk with each other and get to know each other, or by giving back to the community, because that's part of their social involvement. Let's listen to the Xers. You know, I did this for junior achievement, and they were actually dancing in the aisles, and I'm just like waiting for somebody to move a toe, do a something. Thank you, thank you. It's not that early in the morning, and I had to talk to these youngsters all day, and they had some energy. But that song really does represent this generation, 30 to 45, the MTV crowd, seeing the Thriller video. Xers, as I said, are the sandwich generation. They're very entrepreneurial. So if they don't like where they're working, or they don't believe in the organization they're working for, from a culture perspective, and they don't have what they need, they're going to go out and do it on their own. Why should they work for a company when all they've heard in the news is how their parents lost their jobs, how the companies aren't giving back to employees, they're actually making layoffs and cuts. So who really has their best interest in a Gen Xer's mind because of where they grew up? They think it's themselves. If I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to do it on my own. I don't need anybody else to do it. But also very global thinking. What can we do for the world, for the economy, what's happening? Because they want to invest in it and spend more time thinking of that. I've got a client that's a shredding business, and they took it over from their dad. But now, recycling and shredding is actually kind of like the sexy thing to be doing because it's going green, right? Well, when their dad did it, it wasn't so hip and cool. But now, these kids are running the company, and they get to be entrepreneurial. They get to have diversity. They get to set the work hours, what makes sense for their company. So that's really big for an Xer. If you want to run an Xer off, stand over them and tell them they have to have butts in the seats at 8 a.m. to 5, and tell them that that's really what they've got to do. Now, that can be what you require, but when you dictate that, there's a total difference. And I'm always trying to educate employers, stop going back to that butts in the seats mentality. You've got to get rid of that. You've got to really think about what's the contribution that you make, and you make. How does that play into the overall organization? Some of us can get more work done in 6 hours than people in 2 days, right? I said right? Yes. Yes, we're good workers, we're fast workers, we're talented, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about millennials. These are our trophy babies. Okay. I used to have a Linkin Park song that one of my assistants put on there, and I was like, my head hurts by the time that song is finished, so I'm doing something else. But I do call millennials our trophy babies, and they are walking on sunshine, because if we as parents have done anything right as a baby boomer, we have raised our children to know that they've got confidence, that they can say no, they've got choices, all the things we didn't have. But they've never heard the word no. I know I've got 3 of them. I hear from millennials every single day, and I know some of you are millennials. The difference is hearing the word no from our parents coming into the workplace right away. That's really hard when an adult tells you no, you can't have this, you can't have that, you don't have immediate access to the CEO. Well, why don't I? Well, I'm sorry, but there's this thing called hierarchy, and that's just the kind of the way it goes. I had a client recently that she was 23 years old, phenomenal salesperson, go-getter, just had energy and zest. She tired me out. But she was just so excited. And one day, she came into work, and she had a skirt on up to here, heels, like 4-inch heels, and a shirt that when she bent over was highly inappropriate. So I thought, I'm really invested in coaching her, and my client was too chicken to talk to her about it because she didn't want to offend her. So I brought her in, talked to her, and I said, you know, there's something called a professional dress attire. You want to dress for success? Then let me give you some pictures of some ideas I have for you. She looked at me and she said, my dress is perfectly fine. This is all designer, and I paid a lot of money for that. And I'm like, I know, and your parents are the one who secured your car note, right? And they're still paying your cell phone bill? I said, well, that's fine to go out with, but that doesn't mean that's relevant for the workplace. So she got really mad and told me I knew nothing about generations and stomped out of my office. And I thought, okay, it's like dealing with one of my own children. That's just fine. I'll let her come back when she's ready to talk. The next day she walks in like this into my office. She slinks in the chair. She looks at me and she said, my mom and dad told me I needed to come back and apologize to you. I was disrespectful. I'm first like I'm doing this. But that's on the inside. Outside, I'm like, yeah, you do. Have you heard of this book, Ties to Tattoos? You know. So she apologized because her mom and dad gave her counsel. That night when she went home and she was so upset, instead of going home to her apartment, she went home and talked to her mom and dad, and they said, absolutely, what were you wearing? So she actually got engaged. So I was very appreciative that her parents were so involved, that they actually took the time and energy to also coach her. Because even though I was stepping out and trying to help her, that didn't mean she was fully going to understand. This generation trusts their parents a ton. I probably get 20 text messages a day from my daughter who lives in Canada. 20. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Now I just hand my phone off to my husband and I say, you deal with her, because I'm just about done talking to her this much. But, you know, it's true. It's the technology is really, really important. And the embracing of it, millennials have it. They're eager to learn. Notice that bullet point team orientation? Didn't we just talk about that? They're willing to share. They're willing to open up and work in a team to make a project successful. Versus the baby boomer mentality usually is I'll either dictate to tell you how to do it because I got the knowledge, or I will do it myself because it's a lot harder to train you than it is for me just to go ahead and do it. And I do both, so I can take full responsibility for that. I did some work for the Dallas Mavericks when I was getting ready to write this book, and I put highly confident. So for the millennials in this room, how many of you are highly confident? You know you're good. Absolutely, you're right. And you shouldn't raise your hand like this. I'm like, shout it from the rooftops. You're good. You know you're good. You've got the training. You've got the experience. You're interested, except for in sales. Why do you think millennials are not the prime generation for a sales role? Can't hear no. Right? Like, could you come up right now, for instance, and I'm not asking you to do it, trust me, I won't do that to you, but could you come up right now and do this presentation?
I'd like to think so, but it takes a while to get there.
Right. Absolutely. By the way, public speaking is very, very hard for anybody. It took me years to decide I wanted to actually do this, because behind my safe HR desk, I was the queen. Everybody sold to me. I didn't sell to anybody. So I didn't have to think about ideas to share with people. But the reason it's hard is because you're right. They've never heard the word no. So when you're doing sales, whether it's selling seats, something as fun as like the Mavericks or the Stars, or selling IT consulting, when you keep hearing the word no, there's not as long of a threshold. The confidence level goes from here to here. And somehow when you got the attendance award for just showing up to school and the medal, now you're not getting that anymore. So the trophy's not being shined, right? No one's shining it for you. So when I talk to employers, I try to get them to understand if you've got some communication to have with one of your millennial-aged workforce, tell them what they're doing well. So even if you have to go work with one of your coworkers, say, you know, that was a great job on that project you did. You were phenomenal. You got it done fast. You got it on time. Forget the grammar mistakes, you know, whatever. But then you can go, but there was one piece. There was spelling mistakes, or there was X. So you got to kind of do the rubbing, and then you just kind of got to slip in the little challenge right there. So they're going to be feeling good, just like any of us want to know what we're doing well. Show of hands in this room. Who enjoys their annual performance appraisal process? Whatever you call it. Okay, so we got 2. And now, because you've said that, and I'm thinking that's a very difficult thing to do, why do you enjoy that?
I get to
Mm-hmm.
So is it something I need to work on? It's always put a positive spin, like you do this well, maybe work on this area a little more, and I've always enjoyed that.
Great. So you get both, correct? And for you?
It's the same thing, but
That's wonderful, because the idea of a performance review really should be you either coach people up or you coach them out. So hopefully, if we work together and we share with one another in a kind, considerate way, we're going to coach them up, not out. So now we have the 4 generations. I'm glad I didn't ask you guys which one you thought I was just at this point. So life as a millennial. Twitter, there's some of my bookmarks here, and on the back, it's got "Are you in the know?" And it's got some text lingo, and I'm always open to new text lingo because I want to learn myself. So I got a reader sent this to me the other day, and I'm going to read you just a couple because they're kind of funny, and I've cleansed them. This is for the traditionalist generation. I always thought when I got a text message, LOL was like love you lots, because my daughter would send that all the time to me. So I thought, oh yeah, she just loves me. That's so great. It depends on what we're doing that day. But then a client sent me a text and put LOL on the end. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to conversate with them on the fact that this is a HR business, very legal. We got to do things by the book. Plus, I was single at the time, and I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I wouldn't date that person. Forget it. We work together. So I remember talking to my daughter about it, and she said, Mom, it doesn't always mean that. It could be laugh out loud. And I went, oh, I guess I need to do some more researching. And this is before I wrote the book, so it's okay. I got a little more educated, and people were sharing some of their funny stories with me. So that's my own personal snafu. So I'm glad I did not talk to my client and tell them that they could not date me, because they probably would have laughed me out the room. Probably said, why would we want to date you? You don't even know what we're saying. But here's one that I thought was really funny. LOL. This is for traditionalists. So I've shared with you what mine is with my daughter, then one from a client. LOL from a traditionalist level. Anybody have any ideas? I'm just going to share it with you because it's just killing me. Living on Lipitor. So I have this on my website, generationalguru.com, or you can email me. But there's a whole bunch of funny ones here, and I just love that, because I had to turn to my husband and I said, honey, what's Lipitor? Because he's 12 years older than I am, so I just had to rub it in. So there's some more sheets up here. So the difference in a millennial is interconnected, always. They call them the tethered generation. I'm learning to use my iPad. How many in this room have iPads, Kindles, any of those things? A few people? I was on vacation recently, and I looked around this beautiful ocean. We're close to Cuba. 70% of people my age were reading their books on an iPad or Kindle. I was like, wow, I am impressed that they're actually doing that, and they're actually embracing that. So it was maybe millennials yet haven't been given one by their parent or afforded one yet, because they're not exactly inexpensive, but they are absolutely the tethered generation. So now I want you to hear, for the non-millennials in this room, what millennials want in a job.
I'm looking for a company somewhere where I feel like I could really grow, and it doesn't focus on
a hierarchy.
Company culture overall.
If they're doing something interesting, corporate responsibility is really important. A company that is giving back. Networking, career services, professors, Googling. You can Google anything. My parents, career fairs at school, personal contact.
I can't imagine life without technology.
I check my email. They're on the computer 24/7, 40 times a day. Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube stuff. Use Facebook at work. Companies should be on those types of mediums. Employers can utilize our strengths. I think a good manager is someone who wants you to learn. Feedback is, I think, the most important thing.
A lot of feedback.
At every point in your job, you should be learning and growing.
Isn't that some of the things our wonderful millennials just shared with us? How many companies are going back and selling what they do in the community right now? That's a big challenge, because that's something that really interests them, is what's going on. Social media. Do you guys have an intranet site? Okay, that's great. How many of you personally are on Twitter? Way to go. You know how hard it is to say something in 140 characters or less? Woo! But I'm up to like 5,000 followers now, because I've learned that I can attach links and photos and tell people where I get to go. Like today on my way here, I had a couple extra minutes while I was in the car, and so I sent and said I get to meet with this great group here at Raytheon today and share the message. So there's certain things, instead of just saying, hey, I'm having a cup of coffee. So embrace it. Get out there, look at it, and see what's going on. So we all talk about diversity, but I love this quote because I'm getting more and more requests to talk about generational, which is age. Let's all face it, it's an age issue. But diversity is not about how we differ. Diversity is about embracing, and I say, each other's uniqueness. Because it's more than just that. I've shared with you that I'm from Canada. I've shared with you that I've got 3 daughters in that age. Those things make me unique besides just my age or where I'm from. Agreed? Or is it just your age? Tell me another factor about one of you that's different than your age that would make you unique. Oh, wonderful. Congratulations. That's fascinating. That's what I tell people when I say I've got 3 20-year-old daughters. Fascinating. What else? There's something you do personally. Good for you. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Oh, fun. See, now these are unique things that make each of you who you are, and you bring that to the workplace with you. That's just part of who you are. So besides our age and our generational and what we've been taught at home, our uniqueness and embracing each other is really important. Like when your employee comes to you and says, I'd like to use some of my vacation time, and I'd like to be able to go away for 3 weeks because I'm going on a sabbatical, or I just want to go surf, man. When I married my husband a year and a half ago, I found out, I thought he was just this boring old dentist because he'd been my dentist for 5 years. And I thought he was boring until I realized he rides a Harley, snowboards, skis, certified diver. There's something else he does that really irritates me because he can do all these things that I can't do. I can ice skate like the dickens because I'm from Canada. We know what it's like to go out on a frozen pond. But I realized that's what makes him unique in who he is as an individual. So what I saw was a dentist. I saw somebody like this, but I didn't get to know all the other things about the person, what makes them unique. So I give that challenge to you. Find out what's unique about the people you work with. So here's our current workforce pool. We have women in higher positions, hopefully, of diversity, getting more and more board positions. We have people coming in from other countries, and we're doing it legally. And now we have the 4-generation workforce. So we have a big melting pot within every organization, within our communities. What about our corporate culture? People have choices where they want to work now. Is that true? Yes. If we're any good at what we do and we have a skill set that's valuable, we have a choice. We want to feel valued, respected, and included. I recently wrote a blog last week, you guys will have to read it, on how I fired a client. And I tried to be very nice, I didn't put the client's name. But for me, if I don't feel like people are being valued and respected in an organization I'm going to partner with, I don't want my name attached to that. Because my name, your name is your brand. It's your word. It's what you represent. And unfortunately, that goes with you, or fortunately, for the rest of your life. So that's really important. So there's a lot more corporate culture looking at engagement. Are you guys hearing that buzzword more and more here? How do we get engaged? I'm like, you can pay people to come to work, but you cannot buy free will. Correct? If you work 8 to 5, what would make you stay after 5 o'clock? If you've got a project, what would make you do it? Pardon? You believe in the company. Absolutely. You don't want to let people down. Cookies? You get cookies after 5? Pizza? That's good. I mean, those are things. And that's the free will part that I'm talking about. We can go home at 5, but if you want to ask people for their free will and they're giving back, there's got to feel like some inclusion. They've got to feel like they're making a difference, or there's a higher productivity number or something. They're doing something for their team. Engagement's all great, fine, and good, But if they don't feel like there's something bigger than that, they're not going to give up their time. So what about our customers? You guys are my customer. I'm sure in some weird way I'm probably your customer too. But each of you are each other's customer. You are each other's own internal customer. So when a coworker comes to you with a request, treat that like it's your customer, because it is. So how we treat our external customers to keep the dollars coming in, to keep our benefits, our paychecks, all those other wonderful things, what about how we treat each other? That is huge. Being mindful of who our internal customer is as well as our external. How many of you now think that leadership has become more and more important in an organization? Absolutely. Thank you. Why do you think it's important? Someone? They help set the direction of the company. Absolutely. Right? When companies have had a lot of change in leadership or your management position, that's very difficult. New leaders now who embrace what's going on in the culture, embrace internal and external customers, they have new thinking. I had one of my clients pull in a brand new yellow, some sort of fancy automobile. He just the day before had us do layoffs and cuts to the benefits. Now, as a CEO and as a leader, was he walking the talk? No, he was not. That is just the wrong message leaders need to be giving. So those leaders, boop, out the door. We need new leaders with new thinking to embrace what's going on in the workforce today and find a way to connect with their employees. So how do you attract them? Some of you may have the responsibility for finding new people, or you may just want to tell your friends, hey, Raytheon is looking, and be able to share the message. That is probably the strongest way to find new recruits, is by sharing your personal story or why you like to come to your company versus just a paycheck. Agreed? Mentoring programs, having items like this. How many different divisions did you say you had for different programs? Lots. Okay, so there's lots of programs similar to this. That's part of the mentoring. And I call it also in the book reverse mentoring. So if you see that, it's the fact that millennials and Gen Xers can teach us things that we don't know how to do. I just bought a new laptop and I've had to get somebody to help me set it all up and get it all ready. I had to learn from them, and they've taught me some cool things. I learned to embed my own videos. Let me tell you, at 42, I'm exceptionally proud of knowing these things. But I've had to learn them from somebody in their 20s. But the same is true. The millennials need to know that baby boomers and traditionalists have a lot of value. And we've learned and we've matured through company changes, culture changes, layoffs, downsizing, right-sizing, upsizing. So we can share and do that reverse mentoring idea. You need to be able to make sure you give them feedback, and it's direct. It's not just overall. And how you communicate the message is important. And civic and environmental responsibility. Huge right now. Absolutely huge. Because at the end of the day, people want to know they did a good job, but what about giving back to others who are less fortunate? I did an interview for Fox 4 over Christmas, and they came to my home and said, we want to know why you think the Fairmont and all these other fancy hotels are down by 30% for Christmas parties. And I said, well, if you would ask millennials and Gen Xers, do they want to go spend the evening with their boss and all their coworkers on a Saturday night, or do they want to go hang out with their friends? First question is that. So a lot of people are going to say, no, I'd rather hang out with my friends. Second is, you could take that $50,000 you just did in a corporate party, and could you feed the homeless over Christmas? What kind of money could go back to feeding the homeless or the food bank or something else where that's going to be a lot more impactful? So asking people, what do you want? We have this dollars set aside for a Christmas party or a holiday party. What do you want to do with it? Plus, not only that, but you got to buy a fancy dress, you got to get the date, then you got to get the babysitter. So maybe these parties aren't exactly what all four generations want. Find a way. Maybe you want $100 iTunes gift cards and give back to the rest of what's going on in the world. So here's my personal definition of success as we get close to the end. it took me up until the age of 41, so this is a new revelation for me, to understand what success meant for me. It's liking what I do, where I do it, and how I do it. So with that recipe in mind, I apply that to every decision. When I got asked to speak here today, did this organization fit my recipe for success? For me personally, absolutely. I was happy to drive from Plano to here to meet with each and every one of you, and I believe in what you're doing, and I'm so excited that you want to hear the message. So when I accept speaking events, I do a ton of them for chambers because I want to be able to do that and give back to them. But what about, and I challenge each of you over this next little while, is think about what success means for you. Some people it's to get another degree, some of it's to make more money, some of it's to have children, a happy marriage, whatever that is, but what is success? And then look at that and just really own that as you're looking at maybe your job, maybe how you treat people. So that's what it is for me. So when I fired this client a couple months ago, it was because they weren't congruent in how they treated people. Let me tell you, it was very nice getting paid on a regular basis as an individual business owner. I liked that. Getting a paycheck was a good thing. But I couldn't feel good if the expertise I was giving wasn't being heard and implemented, and people weren't being treated in a manner in which I think they should be treated. So it was easier to make that decision. So if any of you are interested, go out to the blog and take a read of it now that I've shared that personal side with you. So how would you describe your dream boss or employee? And I'm giving you some of these instead of asking you to hold up your hand because you've been such a great audience. But would they be professional, follow through, team player, good communicator? Anybody else want to read another one out that's not up here? Trustworthy. Supportive, good. What about this one right in the center? Integrity. Honor their word. Know that they've got integrity. They're going to be able to deliver what it is. I belong to an organization that their 3 guiding principles are honor your word, and be a giver, and be a success in your own eyes. That's just a little different. But having integrity when you come into a company isn't something they put on a job application, is it? Is that part of your job description? Anybody got that on theirs? Good communicator, good verbal skills, excellent technical skills, but having integrity is important. Does your employer brand tell the story of why people want to come work for you? It doesn't have to be about this organization, just in general. Do you think, either where you work today or where you've worked before, that your brand tells about Raytheon or someplace else, why people need to come here? And all the great things that happen here. I'm seeing some heads nod. Okay, I'm going to let you off the hook on that one. I say, of course you, because your brand, and I had a lady once tell me her brand was Pizza Hut. Do you guys remember when we first started, what did I say my brand was? It's me. I'm my brand. I'm selling me, right? So the employer brand is selling them. Why would I come to work for ABC company? Well, I'd come because of the work. I'd maybe like to come to a place that would allow me to speak and travel, and the environment's important. The management style, which is leadership. Also the culture and the benefits. How many of you keep hearing about the new health care reform with Obama? Oh, yes, every day. I'm a licensed insurance agent, and I get clients asking me all the time. And it's going to affect the generation, so benefits is huge. You know, I would like to think if I chose a regular job, and I always say I'm unemployed, if I took a job at JOB, I want to know that I got benefits at the end of my rainbow because I need those at my age. 20-somethings don't always seem as concerned about benefits. It should answer the question, what's in it for me? How many of you heard of the Whipham statement? Okay. So what's in it for me as a prospective employee, but what's in it for you as the hiring manager? What do they got? What's so shiny and wonderful about them versus the 300 other candidates you're getting right now? That's where you got to look back and look at the part, are they your dream employee? And think about that. What are you getting it out of it. They need to be able to answer that question as they walk away, what's in it for me, the WIFM statement, but you be able to answer it for what's it going to do to your team and your teammates. Oh, got to go back. Here we go.
Für ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät, das Küstenwächter. Das ist das Überlebensradar.
Mayday, Mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Yeah, over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Okay, that is one of the most pointed messages I can think of because they are both speaking the same language, correct? Did they have a misunderstanding in how they shared the message? Absolutely. It's the same thing with the 4 generations. We may be saying X, Y, and Z, but someone else is getting it at this, especially if you're texting, right? Text lingo is so different than real communication, and that makes a difference. So how you share information, performance reviews, job openings, your annual benefits enrollment, whatever it happens to be, how you shared this event, it needs to be in a communication style that reaches all of your audiences, not just one. Not just 2, if you really want to get people engaged and empowered. Otherwise, you're going to end up with this big old miscommunication. So I'm just going to go quickly through this. Did something with Metro PCS. How many of you heard Metro PCS? Okay, you know they have security guards at their front door when you walk in there. They used to say it was the most fun place for people to come to work. I'm like, if somebody is armed and dangerous when I walk into a store, it is not a fun place to be. So they were selling the whole message backwards, instead of what they really needed to. And so their CEO is up there and he's chatting away. At least they got a YouTube thing or whatever it is. So boring. Nothing for the age demographic that would work for this company is attracted to this. This is what we did after. This is one of the afters. And we talked about making people what the environment's like. I also did this for WinStar World Casino. And I spent almost 1.5 years up there hiring 1,900 people to come work out in the middle of nowhere. Now, how do you sell that? Well, we're under construction. We need 1,900 people, and gas is at $4.50 whatever you call it. So how are you going to get people there? How are you going to attract them? And that's really important when you think about bringing on new teammates and what the age of your demographic is. By the way, a lot of our blackjack dealers, they all wanted to do it because they thought it was sexy and they got lots of tips. And our security just wanted to carry a gun. So when we figured that out, we polled all of them. We're like, well, why are you applying for this job? That was how we knew we were going to create our advertising, which we did in cinemas. Why? Because don't we all go to the movies? Absolutely, all 4 generations do. So when you have job openings, that's not such a bad way to advertise. And of course, your company intranet. How many clicks does it take you, if you're on a website, Rudy, before you get bored by finding what you're looking for? You could be wanting to buy a kitchen appliance. 1. Exactly. So when you have 8 different click-throughs on average, you've lost your consumer. Whether that's your person who's looking for employment, person who's trying to understand your company. So you really got to make sure you catch them before they get bored. Here's channels for finding candidates and communicating with each other. Employee referrals. Didn't I say that that was the number 1? How you talk about your company resonates in your marketplace. And of course, all the things that are going on with social media and company websites. Making sure it's relevant to the audience you choose. That one on the bottom, Jerk Free Zone, that's an accounting firm. And they pride themselves on not having any managers that are jerks. And that's really a big deal for them because they said accounting is boring, but we want to make this a jerk-free zone, and we're going to sell it that way to get new professionals in as accountants. So the new leadership is really important. We're going to read this together. A new leadership equals what? New? Right. Why do you think it increased profits? More productivity. Right, so less turnover. Morale maybe. Up, up, up. Yes, exactly. So inclusion is getting the right mix to work well together, including the 4 generations. So here is how you can contact me. I'm proud to say I was not the one to throw the birds up. But Twitter, websites. I just did an interview with Cheryl Hall with the Dallas Morning News, and I was very embarrassed to tell her I do not take the Dallas Morning News, but I do see it online. I was very thankful for her interest. So she started calling me the generational guru. So I got right on that and bought the domain name and launched a website all within 3 weeks. Because that's what you do when you hire people who are younger and more talented than you. You can get that done real fast. So feel free to go out to my websites and blog. I try to do something every week. There's a lot of TV interviews. One of them is you can't text your way through a job interview. So you can download any of the papers I've written and use them to share amongst your teams or just use as a lunch and learn conversation. So I thank each and every one of you for being here today and wanted to make sure we got it done within a certain amount of time. And I will stay after to personalize anybody's book who ends up receiving one. So thank you very much.